Whoa. Before we begin, if you're not a keeper, if you're casually looking to know about Children of Fear, look at our other video instead that we'll talk about our 5 points of why you should check it out. This video, which is about 7 reasons for keepers to run Children of Fear, is spoiler filled. So please check out our video instead. But if you're a keeper and you want to know what the book is all about, welcome. This is Really Dicey. My name is Manny. I'm here with Matt. And today we're going to talk about 7 reasons why you should check out this 400-page plus book dealing with Call of Cthulhu, doing the Asia, particularly China, India, and Tibet during the 1920s. So I will pass the baton to Matt and tell us about this Chaosium's latest game.
Well, the first reason you should run this game is because you get your money's worth. As you said, it is huge. There's over 400 pages. But, and here's the trick, the adventure may not be quite as long as you think it's going to be. Because of that 400 pages, hundreds of pages are background information. Very useful background information. So while the adventure is lengthy, and it does have lots of interesting subplots that you can add in and suggestions to lengthen and make bigger. It's not a year's worth of gaming, just so you know, but it is well worthwhile. Second reason you want to run Children of Fear is the mountain of information scattered throughout this book. This information is not just dumped in the front, which would be just overwhelming. It is throughout the whole book where it's needed. So for instance, the chapter that takes place in Tibet has all the Tibetan information. So scattered throughout this book is all the information you could possibly need to run this adventure. You've got historical information, geographical information, economic, political, meteorological, cultural, religious. The book goes into Hindu myths and different schools of Buddhism. You've got information on travel times and logistics and fuel and how long it'll take your characters to get from point A to point B and how much it'll cost. You even got information on bookbinding. There is just so much information in this book that it would make a really good resource for any other game based in Asia or around Asia or just any sort of Eastern feel. The third reason to run Children of Fear is because of the fascinating nature of its pan-Asian quest. Your characters will interact with gods and creatures from Asian mythology. You'll go to fantastic locations along the Silk Road. You'll go to Tibet, Peking, Delhi. You'll go to Shangri-La. The adventure ends with a dungeon, near the end, there is a dungeon crawl through the infamous hell chambers of the Emperor Ashoka. It's fantastic. This game, reason 4 is this game is flexible and expandable. This game, a lot of those fantastic locations I mentioned could be tied to the Dreamlands. So you could bring the Dreamlands into this game. This game is normally written with mythos elements. There are Amigo and other things, but there's an option to take those out if you want to try something new with your players, or if they're getting a little sick of deep ones. Not that there are any deep ones, but if they're getting sick of the mythos, you can play this as a non-mythos game. You can play it as a classic game focused on investigation, or you could run it as a pulp Cthulhu game, so more like an Indiana Jones. There's optional rules and ways to crank up the action. There are lots of really interesting side quests. If your players are moving along too quickly, if you want to stretch things out or spend some more time in there, there are some really interesting side quests in there, which would make great adventures on their own, which you could even take out and put in other games and run, other locations. So that's, it's got lots of options for the keeper. The fifth reason you want to play is this interesting new mechanic they've added into this game called a karmic balance. So As your characters, as your investigators are going through this game, their actions, good or bad or neutral, can, optionally if you want, influence their karma in a rather Hindu-like myth understanding. So they can end up with good or bad karma depending on how they do it. And this will actually change the game later on in the adventure. So for instance, when your characters end up in Shangri-La, the nature of Shangri-La will depend on their karmic balance, which is a really neat mechanic. So, you know, if they've been really bad and rotten and kicked all the orphans, then they'll end up in hell. But if they've been really nice, then they'll end up in a in a nicer mythical location. So the sixth reason to play is the plots and subplots. So I've already mentioned the wonderful side quests, but the main plot itself is varied and full of twists and surprises, and there's plenty of action, there's plenty of terror, and there's some really creepy bits. For instance, in one chapter, they have to find and make musical instruments from cadavers. So your players actually have to procure the cadavers, and certain cadavers work better for the ritual. So the bodies of nuns and children as opposed to the bodies of beggars. So it can get really kind of creepy and terrifying. So that's a plus in a Call of Cthulhu game. There are also many paths along the same storyline, so the players don't have to go in one direction. The chapters are presented in order, but they don't have to be played in that order. Say your players go here, go to point A, go to point C before they go to point A. The book provides guidance for how to move things around and adjust the timeline to reflect the player's actions. There's also a lot of information on how to fade to black to keep the players in the spotlight. So if the story takes a direction that doesn't involve the players so much, you can fade to black and then come back. The scene comes back in the light when the players are there. So it kind of keeps the action focused on them. One word of caution about the plot. The plot is actually a betrayal. Throughout the whole adventure, your PCs are being misled by an NPC. They think they are working to close a portal to eternal destruction. They are actually working to bring that about, unbeknownst. So obviously at the end, this all comes out, and there are several chances of redemption so they can fix it. But the fact remains that the entire mission is a fraud. And this might rub some people the wrong way. I have actually pulled this sort of bait and switch trick on my players before, but never so lengthy. Never has the entire campaign been a misdirect. So keep that in mind. Keepers know your players. They might be upset, but they might have a chance for revenge, and that might make them feel better. So just keep that in mind. And the seventh reason to play this game is the same reason to play any game from Chaosium. The copious amounts of helpful resources that the book provides. Not only all that information I mentioned, but detailed rituals that the players have to perform, complete with step-by-step instructions and what roles are required. You have the usual pre-generated characters for the PCs to use. You have reams of helpful play handouts, maps, resources, NPCs, new and variant spells. You have something I found very useful. You have 8 handouts called What Your Investigator Knows. These sheets contain general information that your players will know about 1923 to 24 topics. So, for instance, what do your players know about the Chinese situation? Instead of having, you can just print this out and give it to them, and they can say, this is what a person in your position will know. And that is very useful. It's something I'd like to see a lot of other games, a lot of other historical games pick up on, because one of the problems with historical games is not just educating the GM, but educating the players. So this is a way to kind of help them along. So there you have it, 7 reasons to pick up and run Children of Fear. I think your players are going to love it a lot.
Yeah, awesome. And you know the drill, everyone. Like, subscribe. Stay tuned for more content. Have a great day.